And welcome to the Obsessed with Plants podcast. I'm David. I'm obsessed with plants with my co-host here.
And I am Chris, and I go by Permaculture FX online. We got our tea ready. Now, secretly, I have tea. What do you have in your cup, David?
Don't do this.
Is it the dew that comes off of a mountain somewhere by any chance?
They're not sponsored, so they don't get to know.
They don't get to know.
Chemical tea.
You're left wondering. Who knows?
I needed the caffeine. I needed it.
So today's episode going to be a lot of fun, I think, is when do you hire someone versus do it yourself? And how do you vet a designer? How do you vet or tips in vetting an installer specifically, someone that's going to actually put in your food forest? And I will say, in full disclosure to everybody, I do design work, but I'm primarily an educator. I do like 2 installs a year, and it's like friends and family, like maybe doing a church here in the next couple weeks. And it's like my good friends, little tiny Baptist church or like, I don't do that. So full disclosure, I'm not telling you to hire me to install because we don't install.
I'll help out with people occasionally on doing their installs. Like there's one next month that I'm helping, but it's like spreading mulch and stuff like that. It's like, I'm really just helping out friends with their installs. I don't professionally do this.
Yes. So we're not telling you to hire us.
No.
Please don't ask us to install your food forest.
I don't have the time.
Got too many chickens, too many, ducks and horses and a new wife. Congratulations. You are married now.
Yep.
So
a lot of stuff I don't have enough time to take care of my own food forest and install my own stuff, let alone do somebody else's.
Yeah. So for me, like my passion is the education side. I love the long-term mentorship and relationship with my clients. And there are definitely clients that I feel like installing it on their own is the right choice. Like it's actually good for people sometimes to install their own food forest. And you did most of or all of your food forest yourself, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I'm a perfect example of like the benefits and the negatives. There's definitely, I think I learned way more than if somebody had just done it for me. I don't think I would have learned nearly as much, but that learning did come from me making a lot of mistakes, me having to put way more time than I would have if somebody had showed me how to do it right the first time. Yeah. But I do think that there's a lot of value in you can save a little bit of money, because you can spend either just less money on it, or you could, just spend more money on plants like what I did.
Oh, totally.
But the problem is that if you don't do it right and you have to, have that learning experience, it may not even be that much cheaper. Because if you lose all the fruit trees, then all that money you saved buying more fruit trees, well, then you have to buy them again.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, if I had just installed them right the first time, I'd be eating fruit now instead of, planting my third
And
avocado.
I will brag on you a little bit in that, like for you did a lot of things before you just threw things in the ground. You were researching, you were watching videos, you did a permaculture design course. I hear your design course was awesome, by the way.
It's a good teacher. It's a good teacher.
So you did a lot of stuff beforehand.
But I also did just kind of like, I say did research in general. Like I do spend way too much time on YouTube watching something before I buy it because I'm a cheapskate.
But you did a lot of trial and error too.
But yeah, I also did kind of like, okay, I want to put something in the ground. I'm excited about it. So I did kind of just rush into it at that. Because like, I think I was already planting stuff for like almost a year before I took your design course.
Right.
6 months, almost a year, something like that.
You had a pretty good sized food forest already in by the time you took the course.
Yeah. But like I already had like stuff got sick. I just, there was a lot of learning experiences, and even to the point of, I don't think I would have actually learned what the problem was without taking your design course, just because I didn't know what I was looking for. I just saw plant is sick. Okay, well maybe, bad plant. No, it's bad design.
Now, how long have you personally been doing, I'm not even going to say permaculture because that includes regenerative ag, growing organically. How long have you been growing?
Me personally growing since the end of 2019. So like right before that whole COVID era stuff, which that gave me a lot more free time to do that. But then of course I grew up on a citrus orchard. So that's kind of my motivation, like getting into that was, I want more fruit, more stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, definitely like I didn't have a whole lot of experience into it. I just knew what like the orchard was supposed to look like. I knew what some of this was, some of the setup was, but I didn't actually know anything.
Right.
I just,
that makes sense.
Sod.
Yeah. And for me, it's kind of similar. I grew up, growing. My mom was a huge gardener. Grandma was a gardener, started doing more professional like training, receiving training, probably now close to 25 years ago. So please don't do the math, anybody, on how old I am, so I've been
whenever
doing,
you watch this, it's a different time. So
I've been doing this for a while, and I did the earlier PDCs, with Jeff Lawton. And back then, you could go to Zaytuna Farm or Tagari Farm in Australia. Both of those were incredible. And then I also did his instructor's design course. But both of us were big nerds. We love to keep learning. We love to keep growing. And there are some people that are big learners that installing a food forest is going to be right for them. So real quick, before we get into how do you hire it done, tell me a little bit about what are the benefits of you doing it yourself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's lots of different learning types too. You kind of have like kinetic learners, visual learners. Some people need to be told. Some people need to do it themselves. I'm definitely like I learn best by just doing it. Maybe someone showing me once, but so if, just getting your hands dirty, just, some people just want to do that. They don't really care about like, oh yeah, I want this fancy design. That's maybe what they want.
They want to play in the dirt.
But yeah, they want to play in the dirt. And
so that's one big benefit of doing it yourself is you get to learn. You get to play in the dirt. You get to make the mistakes, and that's legit. Now, you said earlier about money. So talk a little bit about the benefits of doing it yourself and how does that save practically?
Gen Z teenager, it's not like I'm exactly rolling in money to start my,
He's not a teenager anymore.
Not anymore. No. I mean, when I started, definitely like, okay, I only have, a handful of dollars to get this. So, that's always limits your budget. And so it's, get creative. And just trying to, eke out every dollar. And we've talked about that topic before, but you can also just, because at the end of the day, if you're hiring a designer, you're not just paying for the trees. You're paying for the trees, you're paying for the experience, all the time they take to do the design. If they're installing it, that's insurance, their truck payments, their gas, any heavy equipment if it's a larger install. Paying a lot of workers if it's a small install. There's a lot of costs that come in with that, and you get a good product at the end. But you're not just putting your money into fruit trees. So if you're doing it yourself, you are definitely paying for it in your time.
100%.
But in my case, I had a lot of free time. I didn't have a lot of money. So that's where that kind of, comes into effect.
And I think that's important to recognize is that some families do have the flexibility financially. They've got the flexibility in their time. And so it really is a cost-benefit analysis of how do I set my house, my yard, and my family up to win the best. And maybe not the fastest, but how do we grow together as a family and as a household?
Well, and bringing back to like if you make mistakes and stuff, I mean, depending on how much time you have to be able to sink into it, maybe having someone design that for you correctly the first time or installing it the first time may be the best way to save money on it. Because even though the cost up front is going to be way bigger, you're not having to spend all that time weeding. You're still going to weed, you're still going to do all that stuff. But like
you're not taking 20 years to learn either.
No. And like my biggest mistake when I first started was I learned just enough to get me into trouble. I mean, it wasn't wrong information, but I was missing a lot of context to that knowledge. Because it was kind of sporadic and all over the place. So I bought a bunch of fruit trees because I'm like, oh, that's the first thing I need to put in the ground, which is technically true. But I also failed to consider that if I plant them 40 feet apart or 80 feet apart, that max size of 40, 80 feet is eventually how big they're going to get. It's going to take 30 or 40 years for that. In the meantime, there's going to be 30 or 40 years worth of weeds popping up because I didn't do anything else.
Correct. Yeah. And so let's go back to, you got to think about what's right for me, what's right for my family, what's right for my house. And if someone decides I want to go on the full journey of learning how to design, learning how to lay it out, learning how to pick out the trees, learning how to install it, that is an incredible journey.
Yep.
I'll say as someone who is a designer, I do 40 to 72, I think is the most designs I've ever done in a year, design work. Many of those families, they don't have the ability to go on a 20-year journey. They just need to hire it done initially because that initial design gives them a delivered product where they go, okay, here's a plan. I can do this.
Well, and then some places too, if you live in certain HOAs or whatever, they may be okay with you putting in a food forest, but they may not be okay with you having a weedy lawn for 5 or 6 years. You need to have it aesthetic. And getting somebody to do it all at once. I mean, it's hard to put in an entire food forest with just yourself or just your family.
Oh yeah. And one that's going to appease your HOA, you know, as well. And it is possible. I mean, I design for PGA communities and football players and the villages all the time. And it's like, you can do a food forest there. It needs to look a certain way. It's got to have a certain vibe. And so sometimes you can do it yourself. Sometimes it's better to hire it done to launch you into it. Now, for those of you that are looking for like, I want to do this myself, I don't charge you to teach you how to do a food forest. So David's going to bring up a little screenshot here, free article on permaculturefx.com. And I'll just say this real quick, is it gives you a step-by-step process of how do you install a food forest, from selecting the location, clearing the soil. It gives you text, it gives you videos, it gives you
links to the articles if you
sub articles. So there's a whole article on how do you get rid of, you know, the grass, a whole article on how do you compost. If you can't install your own food forest from this, you're an idiot. Like you can do this. So I share this not to say, hey, go to my website, but I'm saying, hey, I'm not making any money for you reading this article and doing it yourself. You can do it yourself. Your family can do this yourself. It's going to take some learning. It's going to take some experimenting. It's going to take time, and that's okay. And for some families, it's the right choice to DIY. It just is.
Well, and even if you're not going to use this as your reference to installing it, I still think it'd be very valuable to definitely sink your teeth into this. I actually didn't know this was that in depth.
It's super.
I'm scrolling through. Holy cow! It's like, well, anyway, sorry.
It took me a year to do the full thing.
Said you spent a lot of time on it. I never actually read it. I should have.
Yeah, it's pretty long. But again, we're the nerdy people.
Yeah, but I would say you even just use this kind of like a key or a reference point if you're going to be going with another designer too. Yeah. Like just. You know, it's like designing a house. You have an inspector come in, you know, and you want to, you know, make sure that you look through it yourself and make sure everything's going. You maybe learn some of it, and then just, you know, use it as a key. I mean, you got to know what you're buying at the end of the day.
And I really actually like that analogy. We didn't talk about that in the beginning of like, if there's a house inspector that's coming in and you're getting that outside view. One of the major benefits, I think, of that outside view coming in is they haven't looked at it before. They haven't examined your yard, your house, your whatever before. So you're getting a third party perspective with some really good expertise that's neutral. You know, the house inspector is not your lender. It's not your banker. It's not your mother-in-law.
They're have no skin in the game.
None.
They're there just to cross-reference everybody.
And help you determine, is this a good house? Is this a good fit for me? So for those people that cannot or are not able to DIY it and need to hire it done. Now, when I say it could be the design, it could be the install, it could be the mentorship afterwards. Maybe they design it and install it themselves. Great. And they just need mentorship afterwards. I think it's important to know, how do we become like that home inspector and go, who is the best designer for me? Who is the best installer for me? Who is the best person to mentor me along the way? We're going to give in the next few minutes now 5 major tips on if you're hiring any part of this process, whatever part of it is, what are 5 things that you should look at when it comes to picking a designer? And I will say, Florida is a very saturated market, for better or worse. There are many new nurseries, many new designers, there are many new installers, and their varying levels of experience and price ranges is vast.
Well, and I think especially with Florida, I'm not super knowledgeable about designers from other areas, but we definitely went from everybody thought you couldn't grow to then you had like COVID where everybody was growing and wanted that knowledge that it just, this huge void space was realized and then everybody tried to fill it. And now there's, you know, so many options, which is a good thing. It's a good thing, but it does mean that with the more people doing it, the more likelihood that there's going to be somebody who may not jive with what you're needing.
Oh, totally. And I do think we need 10 more nurseries in this area. I want 10 more designers that do exactly what I do, because there's so much demand. There's so many people that need this. And I mean, even if you just marketed to your neighborhood, absolutely. Like, let's start growing food together.
And it's, I mean, at the end of the day, I think designing a food forest is equal parts science and art, you know, because you do want this aesthetic function and everything needs to jive and flow together. And then there is like this science of these things require this, these things require. And so it's like that understanding and, you know, but you know, what you need is going to be different. So, you know, if you want something that's like the Shire, and you have that, well, hiring a designer who's never seen Lord of the Rings and has no idea what you're talking about, they'll give you a good design, but it may not be that Shire vibe. But if you have somebody who loves Lord of the Rings and they love the Shire and you want that Shire design, they're going to give you something that's like truly inspired artistically for that design.
Every designer's got their own unique take and their own unique bent, to it.
And their own passions.
And their own passions.
If you were asking me to come up with a design, I'd probably come up with something more agroforestry, where you have your rows designed to produce like an orchard. I like the, foresty design, but that's just how I naturally look at things.
Yeah, that's your gravitational
pull. If you have I know that you always lean more towards how the ecosystem blends together, and you can get the color sciences of it. And so it's just all those different combinations.
Yeah. Oh, totally. So let's get into these tips. So if people are going to be hiring a designer, what would be the first thing that you would recommend that people consider if they've decided, I want to hire a designer, an installer, or someone to mentor me along the way?
I would just, first of all, know your designer. Look at what you're getting into,
And how do you get to know them then?
Well, there's multiple ways. You can, most of the time, they're going to want to put pictures up of their designs. That's the easiest way they can share it. So maybe looking at their social media, reading reviews. Obviously, with any kind of sale of a business, you got to see the reviews and how other people like them. I would honestly then also look at how close they are to you. Have they lived where you are? Have they designed stuff where you are? Those are very important because you need to know, is there experience for your area?
Yeah.
And do they actually have experience? Because you can say that you're a good designer, but then it doesn't mean you necessarily are. I'm not throwing shade at anybody.
I get it.
But if someone were to come up to me and a friend and be like, hey, can you design me something? I'll be like, yeah, I'll design for a friend. But that doesn't mean that my design is as good as Chris's.
It's just different.
It's different. I learned from him. Obviously, I have less experience, and everybody's at that different level. And that doesn't mean they do bad designs, but you need to know where they are at in their journey.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And I think knowing their experience level, where did they get their training? Did they do a design course? Have they been to college, or university setting? Did they have post-secondary schooling stuff? Or did they get a certificate of soil biology from somewhere?
Or did they just work with somebody?
Did they just work with somebody?
Were they with an established designer for many years and are now,
and how long is many years? Is it 3 years and now I'm an experienced designer? Or is it 10 years and you're an experienced designer? Because those years matter, because especially with food forestry, it takes 5 years to get to a semi-mature tree, and you're looking at 7 to 10 years before it's a mature system. So if a designer is designing for you and they've not installed or seen a system come to maturity somewhere yet, just know their experience level. It doesn't mean they're a bad designer. They might still be a good fit for you. They might still be a good fit for your budget. I know several designers who are fairly new, fairly new. They're less than 5 years old, and they do phenomenal designs, fantastic design work, and they're very new in the game. So the less years, I'm not looking down on somebody because they're young, for sure.
And that might be where finding somebody that may have worked with somebody previously might come into benefit.
Yeah. And I think working with that other person and also working with other people in other growing zones cultivates and develops different experience. So for me now, of course, obviously I live in Central Florida right now, and I have for several years, but looking back, I lived most of my young adult life in Michigan and 17 years in Kansas City. I know my growing zones. I can farm in the snow, or I can farm in the sugar sand, But I think asking a designer, what is your experience theoretically? That's important. What's your experience in the textbook? What's your experience in the field? And where have you designed? Have you designed in Norway or in South Korea or whatever, you know?
And leaning into the where you design, I think is very, 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 very important that your designer has designs in your area, because what works in another area may not work in another. Now, that just because they design other places doesn't mean they don't know how to design yours. Right. Because one benefit is that if you, like your case, you've had very vast climate differences of where you've lived, all these methods that are different than what you do in Florida. That doesn't mean they're not applicable here, because those methods in depth, so you know exactly why they don't work here or how they would be applicable here.
So I can help those northerners coming down here learn how to adapt.
Well, no, because a lot of people who are in New York, especially, I talked to somebody 2 weeks ago, and they were talking, they just moved down from New York like under a year ago. And they were like, yeah, it just growing here sucks because they are used to their vegetables. They grow annuals and they tried to do it the same way. And of course, it don't work. It just don't work.
It don't work.
And so I was explaining to like the different types and stuff like that. And you know, it helps, but you have to know why it's not working.
Yes. Yes.
Just as importantly as what does work.
I don't know if you see that, but here's a rant incoming. I can see this. I can see this rant incoming. Can I have like 1 to 2 minutes to go on a small rant?
We're good.
This is a
long episode.
I know one of my pet peeves is when there's an out-of-state designer that does not have experience, especially in the state that I'm in Florida. And, you know, they try to do things here that don't work somewhere else. And we're not going to say any company names, like no installer, no designer names. But I will say I've redesigned other people's designs many, many times. And some of these design companies will hire someone from out of state. One of them in particular that is very well known in Florida has people out of the country doing their design work and putting in northern Michigan apple trees in central Florida. And I'll walk in and look at this design and go, who did this for you? Oh, yeah, it was this company. And I was like, oh, it's a Florida company. And the more I look into it, I'm like, oh, they hired someone from France or from Puerto Rico. Now, could someone from France or Puerto Rico design here? Sure, if they've got the experience, if they've got the background, if they've ever touched Florida sand, I think it's very doable. But it goes back to what you were saying before of know that there's a danger of hiring someone who's out of your state, but there can also be benefit if they have the experience level. But the experience has to be able to back it up in some way, you know? So,
and yeah, that's why I kind of lean towards like trying to find somebody. I mean, obviously you want to support local business when applicable, and obviously it's a case by case basis, but I always try to lean towards somebody who I could drive to their house theoretically if I wanted to comfortably. Mainly just because they're living in the same climate, and they're just experiencing the same weather, so they can give a little bit more insight. Because even here in Florida, the climate's kind of swung a little bit back and forth the last 10 years of it used to be very subtropical. Now I'm saying it's more like Mediterranean in the inlands because it's just so dry now.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, if you're going off of historical records, that may not even be helpful for you.
Right.
Even if you've lived in Florida before, now you kind of have to like, okay, well, you're not here. You don't know what's happening, boots on the ground type thing. Yeah, that doesn't mean everybody's going to be like that, because if you're well learned and you know all that
then
stuff,
you can adapt.
Then you can adapt just fine. But
so I think, so tip number 1 is know your designer. Tip number 2 is make sure they know the growing zone. Like, are you familiar with the growing zone that you're designing in? My suggestion would be tip number 3 is look and see if they're a mad scientist, because there's a good part of them that's a mad scientist and there's a dangerous part that's a mad scientist. I love nursery owners that are a little bit mad scientists because they encourage you to try a new variety and a new species. You know, it's like daisy tree. We've never grown daisy tree in Florida and it smells like chocolate chip cookie dough. Fantastic plant, by the way. I'm obsessed with it. You know, we've never done it before. I love getting those new tips from a mad scientist. I don't want to put all my eggs in the basket of growing mangoes on a property where it probably is not going to work. You know?
Well, and that's where I think you really need to find a designer who's willing to say no to you with some of that. You want a mad scientist because they're going to be super knowledgeable and they're going to tell you, you know, what's that push, you know, because I love pushing the edge. But like in the last, you know, couple months I've seen a lot of people on social media who've been encouraging pushing the edge, and no judgment to them because I'm doing the exact same thing.
A little bit in certain areas.
But they're pushing the zone, and then you get that 1 in a million, 100-year flood, 100-year freeze type situation. And then boom, all the stuff that you were kind of, you know, pushing the edge on. I'm good because most of the time it doesn't get cold, or most of the time it doesn't get dry. Well, you just lost it. Because you were already pushing it on a stable year, and now you're on an unstable year, and then boom, you just lost it. But having said that, you also need somebody who's willing to say, hey,
don't do that.
Don't do that. Because like as much as it's good to have them as a mad scientist, you yourself can also get tripped up in that. As you know, like I'm saying, like I'm doing.
I will say, and I know you got a story for this. I will say the biggest question that I get usually from newer clients is, so what kind of apples can I grow in Florida? So, and I hate to say it, but it's like, I usually start with something like, do you want me to lie to you or you want me to be honest with you? And I let them choose. And some of them are like, just tell me what kind of apple. And I'm like, okay, do Anna or Dorset. Now, if they say, tell me the truth, I just say skip apples in Florida, because the truth is like when you go to a grocery store, and you get an apple and you bite into it and you're like, oh, it's not a good apple. That is Florida's best apple year ever. And so it's like, you gotta kind of know this a little bit. So talk to us a little bit about your experience with apples, because I know you have it.
Well, yeah,
I know you have it.
So we were talking right before the show, and I was discussing with I will say client for ambiguity's sake, and they really wanted some apples. And my goal there was to sell them some plants. They were, but I looked them dead in the eye and I was like, are you sure? Because I'm like, I wouldn't, because they were here with their family and they were, it was a family day for them. And I said, I don't think you should. And they were like North Ocala area. So they're significantly colder than where I was having a discussion with them. Not that it's that much better, but it is quite a few degrees difference. And I was like, I mean, yeah, that's good, but you're not going to get good apples. I'm like, you're going to get them once every 8 years potentially, because it's really dependent on how cold it gets. They're not going to get the chill hours. And I think it's a waste of your money and a waste of your time. Yeah. And they were like, well, we don't care. We just really love apples. Our kids are obsessed, and we really care about where our food's coming from. Yeah. Which is the whole reason for their garden. And they said, we just really love apples, and we don't care that it's going to taste like the worst apple in the grocery store, because we know exactly what's in the apple. Right. And I'm like, that's fair enough. Yep.
And if they're going to do that in Florida.
And if they're happy with it, I mean, that's what matters, is they're happy.
Yeah, you're happy.
And so, if they were cool with it, and I'm like, cool, I don't have any problem with selling you this apple.
Yeah. And I think it's important to look for those designers that will be honest with you and say, that is going to give you a grapefruit, or I don't think you're going to be as happy with that as what you thought.
And honestly, regardless of which way you go, both are right answers. It's just the fact of, you just have to know, and you have to have somebody who's willing to say, this is a bad idea, but I will support you in that. But I want you to be as much knowledge as you can get about this is why this may not be the best option.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference between a good designer that can make it work and an excellent designer that will help you thrive, And so I'd like to even use the example of bananas and avocados. Yeah. I was flipping through Instagram today and I saw this designer that has 4-ish years of experience, good designer, and was zooming in on the food forest, because I like to just see, what exactly are they putting in? And within 10 or so feet of each other, they have an avocado and a banana tree. Now, is that technically going to work?
Yeah, technically.
Sort of. Yeah, sort of. They will survive. Will they both give you fruit? Yes, it is an acceptable practice. I would say barely acceptable, primarily because over time, what that designer is going to learn is that avocados like it high and dry. Yep. They love to dry out thoroughly in between those waterings. They don't like damp, moist
And all it takes is as soon as the taproot hits the water table, the whole tree's dead.
Mad.
The whole tree's dead.
Yep. So we got our avocados up here. Bananas are the opposite. They like it low. They like it continually moist. They want all the food. So can they survive on the same playing field? Sure. But should they survive? No. And so it's like, can you have a designer who's going to give you all those things on your property? Sure. Is it the best practice? Probably not. And there is a way to have them both on the same property, but with good design.
And I've seen a few designs that I think worked decently well. There's a few that I've seen where it's like a berm swale situation where it was a dryish area. So the avocado wasn't going to dry out, but the swale was catching a lot of water. So the banana was soaking it up. So I've seen ways. I've also seen some that the banana is not a fruit. It's more of a chop and drop.
Chop and drop.
You still can have issues with that, but there are ways to do it. Just because they do things like that doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. Right. But you do have to be, you have to know, okay, well, is this designer, you give them a list of all the fruit you really love. Are they just going to slap them all together and give it to you back? Or are they going to say, well, your property's too wet for avocados, or your property's too dry for bananas? Yeah. If you have, 100 square feet backyard and they give you avocado and they give you a mango and they give you bananas and they give you an apple tree and they give you a peach, all of those things together into that small of a backyard, something's going to not be happy. you know,
Yeah.
are they going to tell you no?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they don't want you to be happy. That means they do want you to be
They want you to be happy. They want you to be happy in the
happy.
long term, and they care, about those pieces. So to review those, we've got know our designer, know their experience. Number 2 was, are they familiar with your growing zone? Number 3 is, are they a mad scientist in balance? It's okay to be a little bit of a mad scientist. You don't want to, overweigh that too much.
Are they willing to support your mad scientist, or are they willing to kind of rein you back in a little bit?
And that's the number 4 is,
Like a
are
good
they
friend.
willing to tell you no? Like a good friend. Like, hey, I was telling him before this, like somebody the other day, my friend Liz downtown, she was like, yeah, I want to introduce you to so-and-so. Also, you need a haircut. You're looking a little haggard these days. And I was like, oh, dang. That's a good friend that goes, you're looking a little haggard these days. So she reined me back in, a little bit. So, and I appreciate that. That's a good friend, which is also a good designer that says, hey, you're a little bit too off base here. And then our 5th recommendation is to encourage you to prepare or to compare prices. Florida market is one of the most expensive that I know. And I have a theory on that. I think a lot of the reason why Florida is so expensive is people come here to retire. And when they come here to retire, they don't want to do all of the work. So they're willing to pay the price, whatever that is, to just have it done, to walk away. And now I got my beautiful food forest. Well, that has caused major inflation in the installation world. Like, I kid you not, I was talking to a friend the other day. They had the sides of their house done and the front. Traditional landscape. I'm talking palms and like agave and whatever. $19,000. I about crap my pants. Can I say crapped on a podcast?
I can always blur it out.
I about messed myself. I'm like, $19,000 for literally the sides of your house and the front. But it's because people in the villages are willing to pay it. These retirees that are moving in are willing to pay it. I don't think you have to pay that much.
Well, and I also think too, because we were in a situation where there was only a couple, like maybe a dozen food forest installers for a long time, that they were having to service such a large area, and they were giving I don't want to do this price. And because they don't have enough time to do it. So it's like you throw a ridiculous number out there, and then people start saying yes because there's no other option. Well, then new people come in and they're like, oh, well, that's how much they're charging. I'll just slightly go under than that because I'm less experienced, but they're still hugely inflated compared. And then I'm not hating on anybody, but the fact of the matter is that you charge ridiculous prices, and you have retirees who have ridiculous money, and you end up with this snowballing out of control.
And you don't have to pay it. You can. And there are some designers, I would call them or not designers, installers, or some installers are premium. Gosh, they're premium installers that they do premium mulch, premium rocks. They do 100-gallon trees and that is worth a bigger price.
Well, and also look at what they're buying too, because like everything costs money. So where is the money going in? Like, is it a cheap design because you're getting mediocre plants? Like from some growers, they're not really careful about what they're growing and keeping things labeled. So you're getting maybe a fruit punch mango, but it may not be a fruit punch mango.
Right.
Is the mulch coming in and it's
full of termites? That's those new hybrid termites that are coming into Florida. Is like, oh my gosh, they probably came from New York.
Are they doing high quality compost? Are they doing stuff that like maybe contaminated? There's a lot of organic fertilizers previous years that have had weed killer in them, and it's like, they're giving you a high quality, or they're charging you a lot of money, but they're also actually making sure that you're getting a good quality product.
Correct. So sometimes the cost
really
is
important
worth it.
And then that's, I think, going back to that list of how to install a food forest is like kind of go through there and kind of in your head, okay, how much should you be spending on each thing? So then you can kind of make just to kind of match what their quote is. A little bit of just where are they spending this money? Because you want them to get paid well, but you also want to make sure that you're getting a good product.
And we're not hating on any designers, on any installers, on any other mentorship programs. The encouragement we're trying to make is know them, understand them, and do what is best for your property, for your body, and for your family, for your house. Like, you are not just a steward of your land, you're the steward of your house and your family and your marriage and your kids,
And at the end of the day, this is the whole reason you'd want to get an installer, is to set your family up. for success. You don't have the time, and you would rather spend your 1 day of the week or 2 days of the week that you have with your family rather than forcing them out into the sun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that boils us down to kind of two scenarios. Is if you're in the DIY, the reason why you do this is it's best for your family. It's best for your kids and your marriage and your time and your finances to go on that learning journey, to do it yourself, to go on that curve. Or is it better for your family to hire the design done or hire the installation done, and then you can enjoy it together? You're cooking together, you're in the garden together, you're picking flowers together, you're picking fruit together, and there's a growth process there that can only happen then that you may not want to wait for 10 years. So I think there's really two scenarios of like, is this good for my family to do it myself, or is it better for my family to be set up a little bit in the process?
Can I quick tangent?
Oh yeah.
I have my pet peeve, and this may sound very mean considering you do designs and stuff for people, but I have a huge pet peeve of people who buy expensive designs and then they have no interest in actually being in the garden. Huge pet peeve of mine. Like to the point of like, is food forest installations even worth it kind of level? Because you have the technically the third option, which is they hire a design, they don't take care of it. The design then falls apart because you gotta love it. It's like a baby. You wouldn't have a baby and then not take care of it and then wonder, why is my baby not doing well?
Yes.
You got to be a part of
it.
That's why I love the idea of doing it yourself. Not because I don't like designers, is because if you're doing it yourself, you know that the only way you're having a food forest is if you're working in it. So if you're with a designer, here's another thing.
I hope.
Would the designer be willing to let you be a part of the installation if you have time?
Oh yeah.
Because I know some people are like, I want to be out here. We did an installation and
Kristen and Salt Springs.
I didn't know if I was
fantastic. Oh man!
But
she is the biggest learner. Yeah. She wants to be a part of it. She wants to be in the garden.
And we had such a fun time because we filmed the whole thing because this is at her business too. Yeah. And so it was a very much she wanted to talk about the different aspects of her garden because it's all about wellness and stuff like that. But she was out there. I think she didn't have time the first time around, but the second time we were out there working,
whole time
she was out there the whole time with us. She did I don't know. So we were out there sweating our butts off, and she's right there with us. She's planting things, putting in mulch, and
her food forest is one of the most successful for a young food forest. It's a year and a half old. It is so successful because she is connected. She is a part of that, and that has totally set that apart. And I think that's the biggest game changer for her is her connectedness, her emotional connectedness, her physical connectedness, the time that she spends out there. And I'll be honest, and I hope this person isn't listening, I turned down a client this week. I don't know if I even told you this. I turned down a client this week because they wanted to know, would you design it? Would you install it? And would you come back and do all the maintenance for me? And I just said no. And they were like,
I've had a couple neighbors that were wanting me to do a design for them, but then they wanted me to do all the maintenance. I'm like, I can't. And also, why? Why do you even want this?
And she was like, well, we just want to have the food forest and just eat. And I just said, well, I'll be honest with you. I don't install trophy food forest. I install food forest for you to be. And I declined them. I just said, I'm not the best designer for you. They're probably listening. I'm screwed. Whatever. You'll give me a bad Google review. But I just graciously said, I'm not a good designer for you.
Don't give him a bad review because he wanted you to be set up for success. He could have just taken your money. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that's...
Yeah, but honestly, we have to be focused on family first. Family before function. My friend Ben used to say that all the time. Family has to come before the function of it. We don't want to sacrifice our integrity just to have a bigger check or a bigger fruit tree or a better food forest. It boils down to family. And I think that's why we do this podcast, is to help people do it on your own, to help people hire the right parts of it done, avoid the mistakes that we've made. You've made several years of mistakes. I've made 25 years of mistakes.
I'm still correcting mine now. I haven't had the time to fully correct every mistake that I've, just designed mistakes.
So please learn from those mistakes.
Exactly.
And also, my tea is gone. So this was a great chat, a great talk. So if you would take a minute, do the social media thing for us, do the like, subscribe, the follow, the whatever. Leave a comment for us. We've got some new equipment, so let us know if it's good, if it's bad.
Episodes, it's going to be all over the place. Still learning how to run this thing and get these connected. So it's
been fun.
It's learning experience.
It's been fun. All right, we'll see you guys in the next one. Talk to you soon.
Later.